When the war began, the sky over Vega's reach bled silver, 1,000 ships tearing through the void like shards of broken gods. Humanity had reached far, too far, and in the cradle of a dying nebula, they found the Thalran Dominion. Beings older, faster, and colder than anything the human heart could understand. For decades, the war consumed stars. Empires burned, fleets vanished into the black, and yet both sides fought on because to stop would mean admitting that the universe itself had no meaning. On the ground, soldiers learned to measure time not in years, but in battles survived. And somewhere between the ashes and the light, a human captain named Alara Vance found something that neither side could have predicted, a reason to fight that wasn't hatred. Her ship, the Resolute Dawn, had been struck during the siege of Ankar Prime, crashing on a half-terraformed moon still claimed by both sides. Out of the wreckage, her small crew built a makeshift camp beneath the jagged shadows of alien spires. That's where they found Kale, a wounded Thalran scout, barely alive, his armor cracked, his breathing ragged, his blood like molten glass seeping into the dirt. Alara had every reason to kill him. The Thalran had destroyed her homeworld. They'd slaughtered billions. But when she looked at him, delirious and afraid, she saw something she hadn't seen in years. Weakness, humanity, against orders and logic. She dragged him into the ruins and tended to his wounds. For days he said nothing, only stared at the stars through the cracked dome of the moon's atmosphere, his silver eyes dimming each time a human patrol flew overhead. Ilara's crew called her reckless, traitorous even. But slowly, Kale began to speak out, not in threats but in fragments of poetry, stories of the Thalran's dying sons, and the prophecy that his people had feared for centuries, that one day they would meet a species who could destroy them not with weapons but with compassion. Weeks passed. The war thundered above. But on that quiet moon, two enemies began to unlearn what war had taught them. Kale showed Alara how to read the light of dying stars. She taught him how to laugh without guilt. They became something forbidden. Not allies, not lovers, but something that defied translation. When her rescue signal finally reached a nearby fleet, both knew the peace of that moon couldn't last. The Resolute Dawn's crew was recovered, and Alara was court-martialed for aiding the enemy. Kyle was taken as a prisoner of war. For months she watched him rot in a glass cell on the orbital station Vanguard spire. The Thalran sent no word of ransom, no plea for mercy. He was nothing to them, expendable. And yet, even through the thick containment walls, Kale still smiled when she walked by. Then came the silver collapse, a final desperate push by both sides that tore a hole in spacetime near the Orion Gate. The weapon that caused it was Thalran built, but it consumed both fleets. Millions died in a single breath, and what was left behind wasn't a victory. It was silence. Command fell, borders dissolved, and the few survivors on both sides scattered like ashes across the void. Months later, Alara found herself leading a band of refugees through the wreckage of forgotten worlds. Humanity had lost its central government, the Thalran their hive council. And amid the ruins, a terrible truth spread. The collapse had awakened something in the gate, a gravitational storm that was eating systems alive. They called it the Maw, and it would reach Vega's reach within the year. That's when Kale returned, scarred, thinner, but alive. He had escaped captivity, bearing knowledge that could save them all, a Thalran world seed capable of stabilizing spacetime if planted at the gate's core. The catch? It required a human mind and a Thalran heart to activate, a symbiosis no one had ever survived. Ilara and Kale volunteered without speaking. The mission became legend before it began. Two enemies united by love and duty, flying a stolen warship into the collapsing horizon. Their journey through the dying sectors was a pilgrimage of ghosts. They saw planets turn to glass, cities suspended in starlight, and ships drifting like coffins through nebular fog. Along the way, they gathered followers, human engineers, alien healers, children from both races who had never known peace. Together they formed a flotilla, the Dawn Rebellion, a fleet not of conquest, but of survival. When they finally reached the Orion Gate, It was no longer a structure but a storm made solid, a churning halo of light and gravity, where the laws of physics whispered like broken prayers. Kyle stepped forward, holding the world seed pulsing in his hands. Ilara took his hand, feeling the thrum of alien energy beneath his skin. "If this works," she whispered, "what happens to us?" He smiled, that same soft, impossible smile she'd seen on the moon, and said, "We become the light that remembers." The seed fused them together in a blaze that split the void. Human and Thalaran, two species that had tried to erase each other, became one burst of creation. The maw collapsed inward, sealing the rift, and from its heart bloomed a new star. Centuries later, travelers speak of it in hushed awe, a system with a golden sun that sings on radio frequencies, a harmony of two voices echoing through time. Around that sun orbits a world of glass seas and silver forests, where no one remembers the war, only the story of the human and the alien who became dawn itself. And on the surface of that world, carved into the mountains, are two names, written in both languages, side by side, Ilara and Kale. Because even in the darkest reaches of space, when war devoured everything, humanity still found a way to love. The storm grew louder as they neared the core of the Orion Gate. The ship's hull groaned under the weight of unmaking, light itself unraveling, colors bleeding together into shades the human eye was never meant to see. Ilara stood in the control chamber. Her reflection fractured across the crystalline walls while Kale adjusted the containment field with trembling hands. The world seed pulsed like a heartbeat between them, alive with something neither human nor Thalaran. Around them, their small fleet scattered, pilots and engineers transmitting final goodbyes across the open comms. Some prayed, others simply watched, knowing that what they were witnessing would never happen again. "Ilara," Kale said softly, the air vibrating with each word. "When this ends, remember what we built, not what we destroyed." She turned to him, eyes wet with both fear and wonder. "You're assuming I'll forget," she whispered. "You don't understand humans. We're terrible at forgetting the ones we love." The words hung between them, fragile, holy, final. Kyle reached out, fingers brushing her cheek, and for the first time she felt warmth from his alien skin. It was a simple touch, but it carried the weight of galaxies. The light from the core grew brighter, washing over the control deck until shadows ceased to exist. Outside, ships burned and drifted. Yet inside, time seemed to hesitate, as if the universe itself wanted to give them one more heartbeat. "Ilara Vance," Kale said, his voice breaking slightly. "You taught me what mercy means, what defiance means. If your kind survives—" "They will," she interrupted, placing her hand over his chest where the world seed's glow had begun to bloom. "Because you're part of us now." He smiled, small, sad, endless. "Then let's show them what we were." The detonation wasn't an explosion. It was a rebirth. Light tore through the gate, not as destruction, but as creation unbound. Matter folded inward, and from the ruin came a new sun. The resolute dawn disintegrated instantly, but within its heart, Ilara and Kale's consciousness intertwined. Two souls spiraling into fusion, bound by the pulse of the seed. Their memories, emotions, and hopes became the architecture of that newborn star. Across the galaxy, ships that had been fleeing the collapse saw it ignite. Refugee fleets, scattered soldiers, even dying colonies turned their eyes upward. The new sun pulsed in waves, coded frequencies that translated into both human and Thalaran language. "We are light. We are home." Decades later, explorers discovered the system. They named the star Ilarion, and the first settlers spoke of how the air hummed with warmth, how at night the sky shimmered in silver and gold, as though two spirits danced eternally above. They found ruins too, fragments of Thalaran crystal fused with human steel, engraved with strange harmonies. It became sacred ground. Pilgrims came not for conquest, but for memory. Centuries passed, civilizations changed, and war became myth. Yet every ship that passed through Ilarion's light heard the same soft signal on their radios. a faint whisper, human and alien voices intertwined saying, "We remember, we endure, we loved, and the stars remember us." And so it was written that in the age of empires and silence, when light was a weapon and mercy a sin, two beings dared to be both, and the galaxy itself was reborn from the echo of their love.